Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I am so excited today. I have been meeting the most fantastic people. And, today I have met another fantastic woman from New York City. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to have Jennifer Alemany here with us. I hope I said that properly. So I'm excited, and I just, normally I talk for a little bit, but I want to dive right in because what we're going to talk about today is really close to my heart. It's how I started the journey that I'm on as well. And I'm very interested in this conversation today. So I'm just going to let you know a little bit about Jennifer. So Jennifer Alemany was born in Brooklyn, New York. She is Latin American with a background from Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Cuba. She was the first to graduate from college in her family with an associate degree in early childhood education from SUNY Cobleskill and a bachelor degree in psychology from Brooklyn College. Optimal wellness is important to Jennifer. She has been practicing yoga for 12 years. Jennifer is a spiritualist and has been meditating for over 10 years. After losing the love of her life 2 years ago, she began to transform her life through loss, and her first book, Mark, My Love, was born. She speaks openly about her grieving process and being okay with not being okay sometimes. In her memoir, she explores love, loss, and looking at life differently. She currently lives in New York City with her dog, Leo Luna, who I met just before we hit record and is so beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and really help the listeners through processing grief and through what we have learned, what you have learned in particular. So you mentioned you were in HR. You worked in HR for several years, correct? And then how did all of this take place?
My boyfriend passed away about 2 years ago, and I've always been one to write and journal my thoughts and how I'm feeling. So I started journaling, I want to say 2 months after he passed. And then I realized it was more than myself. I was writing very quickly. It was very cathartic for me. And I did feel like the other side, that there was spirits with me, while I was writing it. And then 5 months later, at the end of 2019, I had a book on my hands, I realized. And then 2020 was me going through the motions of, would I publish this? I wasn't sure if I was going to do that. It was a very intimate story. That wasn't my initial intention to publish a book in life or anything like that. And then I kept getting the nudge, that inkling inside me saying, this is meant to help others, what you went through and how I wrote it very raw. I meant to help others with it. So then I realized, okay, I have to publish it. So at the end of 2020, my HR career ended and I went into full mode of, publishing the book, because that was already in motion.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's hard to write a story, a true story of what we've been through, right? Of what you've been through. And I think it's beautiful that you say you could feel somebody urging you on to write it, and somebody was there with you, they were there with you through the process. I'm sure it was very difficult, but also very healing. Did you find that? The reason I'm asking is I went through a similar journey recently, and I too started just as a journal. Journaling can really help someone through grieving, through lots of different things. And before you know it, you said you had a story on your hand, you had a book in your hands, and then, do you share it with the world? So I love that you said this is more than just for me. This can really, let my pain help someone else. I think that is so beautiful. Um, People really want to know how you did it. People want to know, am I the only one? There's so many people who suffer by themselves. And I understand that you also took a long time to grieve after the passing of your mom. And this can be very suffocating. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened, and how everything came out afterwards?
Yeah, I think when I was writing the story after Roger had passed, everything was coming out like tenfold. I felt like I knew that it wasn't just about him. And then I realized I think some of this has to do with my mom, and I didn't fully grieve her. She passed, 13 years ago. She was, a single mom. So she was my mom and my dad and my best friend. We're very close. So that was a difficult loss for me. It was like multiple people I felt were gone now. So when he passed, I realized it was so intense. I realized, oh, I didn't grieve fully for her because it was so raw. And I was, like I said, I was crying throughout writing the whole book. I was crying every single time. There wasn't a moment I wasn't crying as I wrote through it, but I just kept going, right? I would just deal with the consequences of, okay, knowing, okay, I'm going to start crying again. And that was what it was, right? I knew it was just part of the process. But then I realized I had to start not saying finishing up grieving for her, because I don't think grieving is ever finished, right? But I think I realized, oh, I have to look at this again and let some things go as far as my mom was concerned.
Mm.
So
Would you agree that maybe sometimes we suppress feelings because we think that it's a way to protect ourselves? Because that's how I feel. I feel like when something is so hard, you try to protect yourself by not thinking about it, not feeling all the, anger, sadness. There's so many things that go along with grief, right? Do you agree that maybe that happened with you as well?
yeah, I think so. I think definitely a form of protection, but then also I think for me, it was a sort of, I think at times I thought, would she think I didn't need her if I'm going on? Does that make sense? So kind of like if I'm living my life and, is she looking at it going, where would I have fit in here? So I think things like that, I think I did subconsciously. I don't think I did it intentionally, but I look back and I realized, oh, I think I was doing that,
Wow.
so.
So
Yeah.
what did finishing the book, how did you feel? How did you feel when you finished it and you kind of looked at it and said, yeah, like, what did you think?
Yeah, I think I first said like, wow, because I think a lot more came out than I realized. Also, there's like these other little things I go into in the story of, because I talk about a little bit of the different things in my life, right? I'm talking about love in there, not just the loss.
Mm.
So I go into other things as far as, self-confidence issues and how that kind of impacted me. So I tell a little bit of that story, which I didn't expect to come out.
Mm.
I thought that was something I probably wouldn't share all the time with anyone, because I am a private person, or I have been. And that was really not something that I always shared with everyone, that I had,
So you were
self-confidence.
surprised that
Yeah.
it was part of the story.
Yep.
Wow, it's
Yep.
interesting.
But I think that was maybe part of maybe them helping me on the other side with some self-healing also, that there was something there that, I guess messed up my self-confidence early on as a little girl. And then I kept that this whole time, which shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be that other people judge you or make an opinion or say something that they shouldn't. And then your whole life, they don't realize that some people could carry that forever, and it impacts everything.
Do you feel that you feel different now that it's out there? Like, do you
Oh
feel
yeah.
better? Do you feel a little
Oh
bit?
yeah. I feel better. It's gone. The self-confidence issues are long gone. It's amazing. It left like that. I think I say that in the book. There was like overnight, like just
Oh,
gone. And it is what it is, right? I'm not going to question the whys of, okay, I carried this around for 47 years. Now it's just gone. I didn't ask the question about it. It's gone. Who cares?
I love that so much. It's such an inspiration to those of us who want to document, our feelings. And there's no reason not to, whether you choose to share it or you don't. It's so much, it so helps you within, it's so beautiful. So I'm so happy that you did that and that it's out there. And I can't wait to read it. And
Thank you.
just meeting you, I know that it's going to help people. We all go through things in life that we can't figure out at the moment. We need to, it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned in your book, you talk about love, because I don't believe there's loss without love. If you don't love,
Yeah.
you can't really lose
Right.
you can't really.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when I talk about the book more recently, I think I tend to, when people ask me what's the book about, I tend to say first, it's about love.
Oh,
I say that now, I think more so than saying it's about loss, because I realize there was a journey for me looking at the love in my life, in the story, and you'll see that when you read it. So it's more about that than anything. And I think that I realized that too with these two important people passing in my life. I realized also how strong that love was and how important it is to tell those that you love them around you and really mean it, because you never know what can happen. But I know that our love is stronger now, even though that they're on the other side. It's even stronger because I realize more and more, all of this was an awakening for me. So,
and our relationship doesn't have to end, it just changes.
right.
I completely believe in that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is grieving and can't move forward? What would you say to someone who's struggling with grief and can't take the first step? Do you have any advice for, being through it and suppressing our feelings? Do you have any advice for someone who's having a hard time?
I think, just to let the light in. I think that the light always comes in, even in the darkest moments. And I think that I felt myself doing that at times, that I didn't want to let that light in. Like, no, I don't want to see you, because that means, moving on. So I think that's one piece of advice I would tell folks, to just don't resist it. Don't resist that light, coming back in. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to resist it through my story as well, because guilt would come. Why was everybody so damn happy when this wonderful person is no longer here? How can people laugh? How can people? I was so angry when I saw other daughters with their fathers, or other, for me, it was my father. And I became so comfortable in the darkness. So being open to recognizing that light, even if it's just a little bit dim, is so important. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
How do you think, like, obviously those two people that you lost, I mean, wow, it rocks your world when you lose so many things. You lose a part of yourself, you lose a relationship with them, you lose, your life changes completely, because you no longer can do the same things in the same way without that person. How do you think that has affected other areas of your life?
Oh yeah, I think that I definitely, with my mother, I noticed I stopped doing certain things. I stopped cooking certain recipes that she liked, that were like the favorite things that I would make, that she enjoyed. I didn't cook them anymore, I noticed. So there was definitely things that I stopped myself from doing because she wasn't here, because I couldn't deal with the pain of, how can I make this? Like, this was her favorite, dish, And now I want to say it's definitely different now, the past 2 years. Now it's like I'm cooking those dishes again. And then now when I'm cooking them, I'm talking to her and saying, oh, this really came out good this time, or whatever. Like, I'm having an interactive, and it makes me feel good. It brings me joy in my heart. But I definitely realized, there were certain things impacting other parts of my life. I also think that when my mother passed, I think that I drowned myself in work. I realized that later on, that, I'm just being honest, it wasn't a career that fulfilled me. And I realized that now. I didn't realize while I was going through it. So I think I was pushing myself into it to make it feel right. And that was a big one, because she, she passed, and that impacted a lot, as far as across the board for me.
Wow. Do you think this journey of discovering all these feelings that were hidden. Do you think that came from writing, like from the actual writing of the book?
I think so. I think so because I had so many aha moments, I want to say, while writing it, where things were coming out, and then I realized other things, and it was just like a domino effect. Like, I'm just being honest, you know? So,
Yes.
you know,
It's funny, sometimes like, so I'm not, I never think of myself as a writer. Like, and you had said before, it's not something you had aspired to be. And it's funny because if you had asked me to write a story, in English class about something, I would have a heck of a hard time trying to write something. But when it came to talking about grief and my feelings and something so personal, because I never expected anybody to read it, um, I agree with you because you said, earlier before we started recording, you said how you just nonstop. You just got it out there and you were writing and writing and writing and writing and not even thinking. Like the words just came, the feelings I couldn't type or write fast enough because I felt like, oh my God, I've been so closed and I'm going to explode from all these feelings and I just can't, So at some points I was recording myself because I'm not a quick typer, and I hand wrote most of my story because I interviewed my dad and before he passed, and I wanted to record, I was in a panic. I wanted to record some things, and I wanted to not forget. And I love that you had this like a similar experience. This is amazing. This like it fascinates me because I thought, well, maybe it was just, but okay, so there's two of us now, okay, I just feel so connected that way.
Yeah, there was another gentleman I spoke to months ago on a different podcast, and he lost, I believe it was a close friend of his, a childhood friend. And he also said that he's still writing right now, but he's having a similar experience where it's very quick. And so, hey, there's something to it. I know, like I said, I also handwrite, like you said, all of my stories, I've always been that way. I need the pen in my hand to write. So I too was writing very fast, but I was just able to do it. I guess all the thoughts came out that needed to be, but they were all there, but it was quick.
A pen, piece of paper, and a box of Kleenex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was my coffee too. Some silence. Oh, I say it was fast, but it took me 15 years to write mine. But in the end, it was only like 3 months and I was done. And I think the reason it took me 15 years is because I was hiding all those feelings. So I wasn't really ready to write it.
Right.
So how long did it take you to write your story?
Gosh, I mean, it was 5 months, basically.
Wow.
5 months to write it, right? But think about it, like I said, I didn't really write much when my mother passed. I know I didn't. I kind of stopped writing at that point because I probably didn't want to get out my feelings. So I wasn't writing for a long period of time at that point. So, when it burst open this time around, it came flooding out, and you know, it's funny that, I don't know if I mentioned before, but when I was writing, when I started, it was out by the pool because it was the summertime and the building I lived in had a pool where I was. And so literally I'm out there with these big shades on and a sun hat, the tissues, like you said. And I still wonder till this day, like, who knows what my neighbors were thinking, like seeing me out there crying like every evening, by the pool. But hey, no one ever came up to me. I think they kind of let me be in a sense. But I think about that often. Like, what were these people thinking? Like this. But
You should ask them to read the book now and you say, remember all those days? You remember those days,
Yeah.
You didn't think you didn't know if I was quite okay, but you didn't ask either. Well, it's
Right.
okay to ask. That's funny.
Yeah.
So how did the losses change your life? Like how do you feel that in your heart? Like do you feel that we're all here for a reason? Like do you feel that we're all taking up space and we're all here on earth for more than just us? And how did you figure that out?
Yeah, I think it was with the last loss, that too. I started asking. I said, I know I have to be here for a purpose, and I started asking just out loud, saying, "What's my purpose? What am I here for?" And that's part of the time period when the book was coming to life, right? It was being, you know, I was incubating it or whatever you want to call that, right? So it, it makes sense. And, it felt right. If that's, you know what I mean? Like when I was done with the book, I knew I meant to do this, but then I realized I'm able to connect with my feelings. And I realized I think that's part of it. I think that I'm meant to write other books, which I am doing. But I think the part of it is because of that, I'm able to express how I'm feeling so raw, right? And when you read the book, you'll see, because people tell me that, like, wow, you were just so real with your emotion. Like they felt like they were with me. It was a very conversational tone. They said they all kind of told me that they read it very quickly because it's such an easy read. It flows very quickly. But I think that that's part of what I meant to do. And I meant to help others, I think, bring whatever messages, if it's intuitive writing, which I think it is coming from another place other than myself, we're transporting messages from, think about it, right? So, hey, it is what it is. Like we're sending, I'm jotting down words that are coming to me from my gut and my, my feelings. So I know it's blessed in a sense.
I love that so much. I'm very passionate about helping people figure out what their gifts are and what they're passionate about. And before I dealt with grief, I never really thought I had gifts. I never really knew what those things were. I was like, oh, I'm not talented in this. Oh, I don't do this well. I don't do this well. And it wasn't until my journey through grief with my father that I started questioning a lot of things. Like you're saying, what am I here for? What is life about? Because I always say, death is very anticlimactic. Like here you are, you have your life and you're going up and down, so many things affect us, even though we're one little person in this big world. But in our world, everything is huge, right? Whether it's small things or big things, and things to celebrate or sad things that happen. But it's not until you see someone pass away or you see them take their last breath and you look and you're like, that's it. It's just done. And to me, that was like, wow, this was the first time I had seen that in front of me as it was happening. And I was shocked. I thought it was going to feel different. I thought it was going to feel more majestic, more of a moment, and I was like, wow, life, I have to live better. I have to live, you know, we're each so different. What are we doing here? And I don't think that I would have looked at life that way had I not have gone through that. Do you feel the same way? Like, do you
Yeah,
question?
yeah, I agree. And, I think that for me, I feel my thought is that I discovered, I think we all have our individual purpose while we're here, but I also feel like one commonality that we're all, I think, ultimately here for is to learn how to love, but I think equally, right? Equally, where everything is, right? Just the humankind and loving in that heart, in that space. And I think that's something we're all meant to learn here. And I strongly feel that if we don't learn it here, we're learning that on the other side. And I think that's the main goal of us being here, I think. And then we all have our individual gifts and purpose of these other special things that we're giving information in some way, and like I said, I think that I realized that because when I look back at my life, I realized, oh, in college, I took some psychology courses and I had some teachers where I did some analysis, like just with these fictional characters, but they called me and said, wow, for
Oh,
someone who's 20 years old, like this is some deep thought of the analysis. So that's part of like what I was saying to you, right? I think that it's not just me writing. I think it's me expressing feelings and, some sort of space like that. But I think that we're all ultimately here to learn about love and being kind to one another.
I love that so much. I'm all about kindness. I love that.
Yeah.
And not only is it important to learn how to love others, but to love ourselves.
Mhm.
This show is all about learning how to love yourself so then you can love other people, because you can't do it when you hate yourself. I felt like that for many years and I couldn't think of other people.
Mhm.
I just couldn't, because I was so burnt out. I was
Yeah.
doing so much for everyone else that I forgot about
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
because we learn, growing up, that taking care of ourselves and talking about ourselves is like either a waste of time or not important, or,
Mhm.
we're above other people if we do that. We shouldn't think so highly of ourselves. This is how we grow up sometimes. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that the new generation is learning from that, you
Yes.
know? So what do you do for self-love? What do you do that centers you every day?
Oh, I meditate every single day. That's an important piece that's grounded me, and I want to say that was, probably a saving grace, ever since I started doing yoga, you
Mm.
know, 13 years ago. So that's one thing I do every single day without a doubt. And then the second thing I always do is I always go for a walk every single day, even if it has to be just a short walk, just getting out in nature and walking a little bit.
Mm. It's beautiful. For someone who is having a hard time, perhaps thinking of themselves and perhaps learning how to give themselves these small moments, do you have any advice on how someone can start, maybe who hasn't meditated before, who perhaps hasn't done yoga before? What do you think would be a good way to just like introduce them?
Just, I want to say 5 minutes of just sitting still.
Mm.
That's all you need. That's the way to start, right? I didn't start, I wasn't at the top level of anything, when I started that journey, So I tell folks just sit 5 minutes in silence. Right there, that's a moment of stillness, a pause that can clear something up, can get your head back on straight, can bring you joy, whatever it may be.
Mhm. And some people might find that uncomfortable, but if you do, more reason that you need to do that.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
I
I
agree.
know a lot of people that are not able to have a meal by themselves or
Hmm.
have, take a break by themselves. They always need to be surrounded by other people. So though I love talking with other people and I'm a social being, I treasure those moments when it's just me, which is quite different because before I started dealing with grief, I felt very lonely and the silence was louder than anything for me. Like the silence was like deafening because I felt it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
So when you can sit with yourself, like you're saying, for a few minutes and not feel uncomfortable, not feel guilty, not feel all these negative feelings, you'll start to have a smile, just like Jennifer. She looks so happy. We weren't always like this. Okay, listeners,
No,
we've been
yeah,
through some stuff and it's
yep,
hard. It's hard coming back from things. And it doesn't mean that you don't have bad days.
right,
There's
right.
grief attacks, right? I mean, there are
Hmm.
days that I'm sure, you remember and you think and, you have and you feel terrible, and other days where you try to celebrate the things that you've learned.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's everyone needs those moments, right? And you have to allow yourself those moments, right? You can't beat yourself up saying, "Oh, why did that happen? Why am I crying again?" or something. It's just natural. It happens, right? All the time. Sometimes I have a moment and I'm like, "Why am I crying?" and I let it out, and then it's gone. It's fine. I move along. So
And if you're not a crier, that's okay too. Like
yeah,
whatever works for you. Everybody is different. Everybody's grief journey is different. Don't let anybody tell you how long it takes. If you're not into writing your feelings, don't write it.
right.
I've done it all. I've grabbed a pillow and, punched the heck out of the pillow, and then I've written, and then
Hmm.
I've, gotten in my car, gone for a drive, find a dark parking lot, close the windows, and then scream. I've done
Yeah,
lots of different things, because grief can
yeah,
bring on so much. But when you write your book and the healing that comes from that, and you don't feel ashamed to share it, and you don't care if people judge it. Like,
hmm,
it's a little scary. You said, and I agree with you, when you put your book out and you're like, oh, making that decision of putting it out there is like, are people going to like it? Are people going to think, oh, this is just another book about sadness? Are people going to, all these things? And it doesn't matter if you write it for the right people, because the
hmm,
people that need your story and the people that will read your book will completely understand why you wrote it. And it's going to help those people. We have to remember that we're not writing for the people that won't get it.
right. Right. And those like you said, those people will find you. I literally I want to say it was probably a month before the book came out. I was doing some online Reiki training. I wanted to, so there was a group and we had these little breakouts. And there's one woman where I was in the breakout partner group with her. And, she asked me what I did. And I mentioned I was writing this book. And, I wrote the book and I told her it started because my boyfriend passed. She right away said, wow, I wrote down your name. She goes, I can't wait till your book comes out. She says, my boyfriend passed away 4 years ago. And she said, and she totally felt like no one gave her the time of day in it because it didn't matter because it was a boyfriend. And she went into whatever. And I felt I'm not saying I went through that exactly. There were moments of things like that, but I could tell she went through a lot of, and that's so wrong. It's a person who they lost someone. Stop with the labels or the pieces of paper because it wasn't a marriage. She loved him, right? And now he was gone. So it's just, so like things like that. I said, wow, that she's like, I can't wait to read your book. She says, because that hit home for her.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. It really bothers me when people associate how long you grieve with the type of relationship you have. Those things don't blend. We're all so different. We all grew up differently. We all react to things differently. So yeah, it does. It bothers me because there's so many kinds of losses. Like, so people are like, well, okay, I haven't really experienced, I'm not having trouble with grief. Why should I read your book? Because it's a book about love.
Right.
It's a book about discovery, right? It's a book about why you shouldn't hide your feelings and how things can be healing. There's so much more than just that, and that's what makes it special. One of the biggest compliments you can get is that person that read your book, that you were saying. I think it's beautiful that, if it helps somebody, and ultimately it helped you to write it. And that's what I really admire and I respect, because it is hard. I know it's hard.
It was a freeing thing for me. I believe the last chapter is called Freedom, because I felt such freedom afterwards, like all of it. Like, it's just basically like a new life. And just, that's what I felt like at this point. And that's why I have the smile, like you said, and all of that, because I cherish every day that I wake up. I thank God I wake up every morning. I say thanks for another morning, and then I see what's going to come.
Being grateful is a big part of that journey, isn't it? Learning to be grateful. And it doesn't have to be big things. Sometimes it's the smallest things that you think are insignificant, but without them, it's, I don't know. It's just, I know on your website, you have this saying on there and I really love it. And I don't remember it word for word, but it was something about you can get over. What did you write on your website?
Always know you can get through anything. Like, you really can. Like, yeah. And it's true. When Roger passed away, I thought like, oh my, I was in shock again. And I thought, this is going to break me. Like, this is going to totally, this is it. And then I realized, wait a minute. And then something turned over and it changed everything. And I said, now I'm going to use this pain and turn it into fuel and change everything in my life, basically. And that's what I did. But,
Yeah. Thank you so much. Do you have a copy of your book handy?
Oh gosh, I don't. Let me just see. Actually, I do right there. I do.
Maybe you can show us the cover. Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Where can we find your book?
On Book Baby, Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Wonderful.
And then check out my website too. And you can get the book there as well. There's all the clicks to get it there directly as well.
That's beautiful. So what's next for you, Jennifer? Are you thinking of doing some more writing?
Yeah, I'm writing 2 additional books right now. And we'll see what happens. They're taking a different progression. I want to say one's more dipped in spirituality and kind of what I've been discovering this whole time too as well. And then the other one is a little bit of I want to say, it's going to turn into probably a fiction based on some real life events. Let's put it that way, which has been a fun one. So
that's fascinating. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I love it so much. I usually ask my my guests one question, because this is about self-love as well. What is the one thing that you think you have done for yourself that changed maybe the way you thought of yourself or the way you look at yourself? What's one gift that you gave yourself?
I think that I finally told myself that I was beautiful, and
Oh,
I meant it, for the first time. I think that's, yeah,
oh, I love that so much.
because that was a hard one for me. People would tell me that, like people would say to me, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and I would literally curl up in a ball. I couldn't handle it. I didn't think that was the case or whatever. So yeah.
Oh. So once you started to embrace that, then it actually it made you feel different about who you were.
Hmm.
So beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always so hard on ourselves, aren't we? If we treat
I know. It's
ourselves, I always say it, if we treat ourselves half as good as we treat someone we love, half as good.
hmm
Oh my
hmm
God,
yeah.
where would the
And that's
world
why,
be?
it may sound weird, but I'm number one to me right now, always. I realize that, and that's, I take care of me first, across the board, and then, that's the most important thing. So
And look how happy you are. See, it doesn't mean we forget about other people. We take care of
right.
ourselves because if we don't,
Yeah,
who's going to?
right. Absolutely.
I had such a great time talking to you today. Thank you for sharing, the healing that you did through writing your book. And I didn't want to ask too much about the story because I do want people to go out and read it. I want them to follow your journey in the book and see how, it affects them and see if they have any similarities with your story. Even if they haven't had someone pass away, it's not just about that, like we said earlier.
Yes.
So I love that so much. And I'm going to put up all of the links so people can find you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that maybe you wanted to talk about today?
No, I think I'm good. Just to remind everybody, to live their life in love, and self-love is the number one important thing. I just want to leave everybody with that. But thank you for having me. It was such a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And look for that light. And even if you don't see it at first, please don't give up because, you know, the rest of your life really does depend on it. Don't hide from your feelings. It can really create so much more angst and disease and so many things. It make us feel so much worse and prolonged. So, try writing. Writing is therapeutic, and handwriting is just the act of writing is beautiful. I know someone who writes a lot of lyrics to songs, and you could write so many different things. Write a poem, write an anger letter. It doesn't matter. Just start getting something on paper. And if you want to burn it after, but
Hmm.
but
I've done that too. Yeah.
and let it off for the spirits, right? Like all
Yes.
part of the spirituality.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And it was awesome meeting you. Hope to keep in touch with you.
Oh, absolutely. Nice meeting you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.